All right, man. It's time for the shenanigans to be over with. Let's get it started. Taking it from the top. Going live in 3, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else in between, my name is Ashton Gene Lewis, and this here little podcast is called the Broke Boys Sports Podcast. There is a gnat somehow in my room, which, something's whatever. Anyway, we're talking about sports, getting ready to do our thing. My team just dropped our new jerseys that we're doing. We're doing tank tops this year, so it should be pretty sweet. Sleeveless jerseys, the way to go in pretty much any sport, especially one that involves the full rotation of your shoulder. So my drip is about to take a whole nother level this season, and hopefully everybody on the team buys the fucking sleeveless jerseys so that we can actually play in them. Anyway, what else I got? Oh, we should talk about football, I guess, at some point. We're going to break down every single game from week 5. Yes, even that game. I will also like to point out that I am just going to go straight to the games because we are running really low on time. Because if I'm not mistaken, Thursday Night Football starts at 7 today. Let me double check. Anyway, if you're in the chats, in the comments, sound off. I should actually be able to see because we have... on the back side of my OBS, I should have a live stream comments or whatever. So if it was like last Thursday, which was pretty lit, I'm not going to lie, having people in here going back and forth talking about football, still trying to look up the time that Thursday Night Football starts. It's probably going to say 6:15 and I'm going to lose my mind. Let's see. Don't forget, you can watch Thursday Night Football. You don't have to have Prime Video. You can watch it for free on Twitch. You just follow Amazon Prime. And it doesn't look like you can hear me. Oh, wait, never mind. Sorry. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong monitor. Starts at 7:15. Oh, man. We got plenty of time. A whole 2 hours before this show becomes completely irrelevant after I finish recording it. Anyway, let's get it popping. Let's see. We should start from the top. Start from the top here. Let's do it. So going back to, as you guys know, we talk about my predictions that I make every single week. I didn't do the prediction show because I was irresponsible and didn't schedule it correctly. I did. You know what the messed up part was? I should screen share my Google Doc. I did all of the work for the show, just didn't record it. So it was like the worst possible scenario. And actually it was, I've gotten better at not beating myself up about not being absolutely perfect as a podcaster. I don't get paid to do this. I'm trying to get to the point where I get paid to do this for the most part. And I know that that's going to come with having to be more prompt, more consistent. And I think the fact that I'm here today is another step towards consistency. Can't be perfect from the jump. I got a lot of stuff going on. I got a lot fewer things going on than I did last, in the immortal words of Tom Brady. I'm 40 years old. I'm actually 31. He was like, I'm 40 years old. I got a lot of shit going on. That one time when we were asking him where he was before training camp started and all that kind of jazz. Anyway, I'm doing a lot better. This week, personally, before we start talking about football, huge step towards me. If you guys don't know, I play this weird sport called quad ball, and a big challenge for me has been the weight that I weigh while I play said sport, because it has affected my ability to play at a higher level. I play pretty consistently, pretty high level. Your boy's back down to wearing 2XL t-shirts again. Dry fit. I did it on, if you follow me on Instagram, it's scrolling right there at the bottom right now, at the Ashton Forever. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll be able to check out my basketball shenanigans, because I've recently upped the amount of time that I spend playing basketball from 1 day to 2 days. And I spend a lot of time like mentally pushing myself to go as hard as possible, trying to, test my cardio, test my strength. I love scoring. It's fun scoring buckets. It's not the end all be all for me. I score a couple of buckets here and there. I make some cool layups. I made a reverse a reverse hook shot. I'm sorry, a reverse layup without touching the rim, which is pretty cool because the only other person I've ever seen do that was LeBron James in 2017 in a game where the Cavs were playing. I forget who. Anyway, I posted it on my IG story. It was pretty cool. Big moment for me. Been getting progressively better at basketball, and it's kind of weird. Played sand volleyball on Tuesday. Sucked ass, my guys. Apparently, when you've never played a sport formally and then you go up against people who have played it like recreationally but are not better athletes than you look pretty bad versus those people. So yeah, it was really weird. We had like 6 people up front. We were playing like 6v6, and it was weird. There's people who've obviously been playing since they were like in high school, so they were pretty good, and it was very much, it took a lot of me to not be a dick about it, in the sense of like there was one person who probably was like the most athletic person there, even though there's a guy on my team who felt like he was more athletic than the dude that I'm talking about, but he kept talking about how bored he was, and how like it wasn't fun, there wasn't any actual challenge for him kind of deal, while we were playing like pickup volleyball 6v6 where you don't even actually have to move that much. And it was kind of frustrating because his team ended up losing, like I think they lost like 3 games in a row, and my team beat them twice or whatever. I didn't contribute to my team winning at all. I was struggling to serve consistently, and let's be honest, like volleyball's one of the few sports where it does have some aspects of like raw athleticism in terms of like vertical, but there's a lot of technical stuff that goes into it in terms of footwork, approach, and you only get to touch the ball for a singular moment. Whereas like, stuff in basketball where like you get to dribble the ball technically as much as you want to a certain period of time, but facts are you got to be able to put it together. You got to be able to put it together when it comes to it, and it's a singular moment where you have to put it together. Very similar to baseball. It's like sudden explosion, and if you don't got it, you don't got it. And I ain't got it. Like I tried to I tried to spike a couple of times, and I don't dude, I weigh over 350 pounds. I don't have a vertical. I think my vertical is like 30. No. It's like 27 or some shit like that. I don't know. I don't jump high off the ground, especially when I'm in sand. So I was going around doing my thing, having a tough time like getting the contacts correct without getting called for doubles and stuff like that. But I suck so bad, and this is one of the things about me when it comes to sports. Like, I get my ass kicked, I'll be back next time and trying to get better. So I felt like I didn't do terrible for a guy who's literally never played competitive volleyball a single day in his entire life. And I was really hoping to play like 3v3 because I want to be able to run around and move more. The 6v6 stuff was kind of annoying. There was a dude who was on my team, and he literally just took every possible contact that I could possibly make with the ball away from me. And then every once in a while, he would just he would cover one angle like 9 out of 10 times, and then wouldn't say anything the one time he didn't cover it, and then it would look like I was messing up, and I'm like, dude, you've been jumping in my area this entire game, and you're trying to make me look like I don't know what I'm doing. So which I didn't know what I was doing, but it was also like one of those like, you're fucking around. Anyway, that's what we learned about sand volleyball. It was kind of annoying to see people who were like less athletic don't train as hard, obviously, because they just they understood positioning and skill, which is like, an ability in sports, because it doesn't matter if you have like a 54-inch vertical. If you're jumping to the wrong spot at the wrong time, you're wrong. You're in the wrong spot. You're not going to make anything happen. So yeah, man, it was super annoying because it was like people who were like chirping me who literally weren't like jumping off the ground to hit the ball, and it was kind of annoying. But whatever. Anyway, I'll be back there next week trying to make it happen, trying to become a superstar and dominate people. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, they seem like nice people, but they were pissing me off like a couple times. I can't even lie. So, other than that, we just been on the grind, man, trying to get ready for the season. Trying to get ready for quad ball season. I got a bachelor party coming up next weekend, so I promised myself that I was going to start getting drunk more than one time a year. If you don't know me personally, I get drunk one day a year, and it is my birthday. So I told myself after 2020, I got to start living it up a little bit more. And so I told myself, I was like, yeah, I'm going to get drunk like twice a year. And my second time, you know what? I take that back. I'm probably going to get drunk 3 times before this year is over with, because on my birthday, I wasn't really that wasted this year. Bachelor party this upcoming weekend. It's all guys. There's only one person that's going that I truly don't care for very much. We used to be friends and we're not anymore. But I don't hate that person. I'm just not friends with them. And then the actual wedding for this guy is December 8th, the same day as my mom's birthday. So I'll be probably turning up there on the dance floor. Every wedding I've gone to so far, I've been extremely late to. I can't be late to one of my best friend's weddings, but I'll be there. I'm going to be turning the fuck up. I'm in every single wedding video for my friends that have invited me to their birthday party, because I'll be out on that dance floor tearing it up, bro. Like, last one I went to was my boy Leo, and if you are a member of the Hispanic culture, there's always this older guy that knows how to dance so well that he embarrasses the young people out there on the dance floor. That guy came up to me and was like, "You're a very good dancer. You know that, right?" And I was like, "No, I did not." But it kept your boy going for the entirety of the night. Drove all the way to Dripping Springs to hear that, and it was totally fucking worth it. Anyway, let's talk about football. We're not doing, that was all that time I spent talking about myself personally. That's all the time that would normally be allotted to the nuke, talking about the spread, which, by the way, we went 8-6. We had another winning week overall. Didn't select for Thursday Night Football, which, by the way, thanks for reminding me. I'm going to do that right now. So if you guys did not know, if you guys didn't know, here's a secret. The Broncos are playing the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football, which I think is it 12? Is it 12 in a row? I think it'll be even. No, it has to be odd, right? No, it has to be even this year, because the Broncos have not beaten the Chiefs, I think, in 9 consecutive tries that they've played them, regardless of like home and away. They sure as fuck haven't beat them at Arrowhead, but they have not been victorious in their attempts. I'll say this much. We're going to talk about Thursday Night Football and the actual breakdown of the game, but my pick is obviously the Kansas City Chiefs. I also think I've keyed in on how the Broncos play football, and it's actually kind of stupid. So in my pick'em league, pushing the mic away. I usually have it way further away. In my pick'em league, I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs. On ESPN, it is 98% of the people taking the Chiefs. There's always got to be a natural dissenting person. Very much like that Dave Chappelle skit that one time. We're in the 73rd percentile of ESPN pick'em leagues right now, and then we're in the 63rd percentile against the spread. 61. I don't know why I said 63rd. It says a 1%, and then when you click into the actual picks that you have or whatever, oh my god, it's 10.5. I'm gonna go plus 10.5. I'm not that dumb. The Broncos defense is actually good. The problem is that their offense does everything in their power for them to be like, hey, so the only way we're gonna win is if you score the points, you know. One thing I've noticed, the Broncos tend to only play football on offense in 2 quarters, the first and the fourth. Anyway, let's take it. Let's move on. We're not doing streaks, peaks, and ditches. Sorry. The only one that I needed to take that time to get through all these games because I thought we were going to be accelerated on the clock. It is 5:31 as of right now, and we're gonna turn it up. We're gonna turn up a little bit here, man. We're gonna heat up a little bit. So we'll start with if you guys don't remember, we have the different categories that we break the games up into, so you can understand like how I perceived each one of these games, and you can determine. You tell me if you think a certain game should go in a different category. Category 1 is snooze fest. It's the games that were not worth your or my time to watch. It was not fun, even for the people who are fans of those teams. It was actually pretty terrible. Number 2 on the list, I got the heartbreaker games. So these games are the kind of games that are either heartbreaking for the reason that one of the teams lost, in the sense that it felt like the team that was the most dominant didn't win the game because of the way football works in general, or it's the type of game that you feel mentally or emotionally breaks the structure of a team, right? The oh my category is one of those categories where a result is so interesting that it feels like it could be a harbinger of things to come, good or bad, right? Alarming type of win, alarming type of loss. This week there's one loss in particular. We'll talk about that. And then there's the this is what we're here for category. It's the category of games that is solely defined by these are the kind of games that you watch and you remember why you're a football fan. These are the kind of games that you watch and you know that somewhere out there somebody watched that game and now they are going to be tuning in for their second consecutive Sunday. Somebody is interested in this game because of how well it was played and how much fun it was. Now, obviously, we start with the worst and get towards the best because this is the Broke Boy Sports Podcast, the worst and the best and the worst that sports has to offer every single week. Yes, I am going to do an episode tomorrow. That's just the normal show, I promise. I won't write the show and then not do it. Anyway, let's start off with Snooze Fest up top. This one was a ton of fun for everybody, I'm sure, involved. Monday Night Football was absolute garbage this week. Again, the Packers with Jordan Love and the Las Vegas Raiders. So off the top, man, the Raiders got a lot of pieces, right? Like they got a lot of. We've seen them. We're 5 weeks into the season. We've seen the defense last week versus the Chargers, a team that's supposed to be a pretty good offense from what we understand. They had a great performance versus those guys. They really tore it up against them up front. Good to know that the sound audio is working there. But yeah, versus the Chargers last week, they had a really good showing as a team up front, right? And I felt like that's vastly important. Sorry, I've got to get the promo out of here. Nothing for free, kids. Remember that. Anyway, we saw last week the Raiders were the only reason. The Raiders' defense was the only reason that team was able to stay in that game. And then finally, just the avalanche of turnovers from the offense is what did them in and really just kind of killed any opportunities that they possibly had to come back and win that game. Another ugly game defined by the fact that the Raiders' defense is for real. Combine that with the fact that we are, the bloom off the rose. Right? It's like the rose looks really good when it initially blooms because it's something, something beautiful, and as time goes on, it kind of wilts and fades away. So Jordan Love, I think he's wearing out his welcome real quick in Green Bay, mainly because guess what? Toughest act to follow in the history of the NFL, right? Back-to-back NFL Hall of Famers. Both of those guys won Super Bowls. They have iconic marks. Pretty much every record that you're trying to compete for as a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers is defined by, Brett Favre, who apparently is refusing to reveal his income taxes. But he didn't steal any money, guys. Don't forget that. So they got that going on, plus Aaron Rodgers, who was one of, whatever you have to say about Aaron Rodgers as a person, which we technically know very little about. He's one of the best quarterbacks of our era. The last 20 years, defined, right? Part of the defining era of playing football, right? The last 20 years. I know he hasn't played 20 years or whatever, but he's one in the past 20 or 30 years. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, right? When you rank them all out. But losses like this are always tough, man. The Raiders, man. One, this game is ugly, super boring. The Packers defense is something that we've been hearing about since the beginning of the season. They came out there and did their thing, and the offense for the Packers let them down again. Same thing for the Raiders. Like, this is there's so many situations this week that happen where it's like super powerful defense faces off against super powerful defense, and the offenses are just like out to lunch for most of the game because of just legitimately, I say it on the show all the time. People talk about it on the internet. There's one guy called Trap House Sports who makes this joke all the time. It is insane how hard it is for some teams in the NFL to have two positive plays in a row. Two positive plays in a row. And it felt like in this game, weren't too many of those. That's one thing about NFL offenses, though. Like, they'll go an entire game, look completely like ass, and then all of a sudden they'll have one drive where it's like, why didn't you just do that all game, right? Because there's a certain level of intensity that it requires on offense to be able to string together those kind of plays, right? Everybody's got to be on the same page all the time. Even the people who don't get the ball have to be on the same page as the people who are getting the ball. So, yeah. The Tennessee Titans, final score on that one was 17-13, if you cared. I predicted the Raiders to win in that one because I felt like what I saw from the Raiders was pretty impressive. I thought we were going to see some better passing going around or whatever, but I also saw more consistency from the Raiders, which is saying a lot comparing it to the Packers. But, yeah, Tennessee Titans, 16, Indianapolis Colts, 23. Obviously, there's two big things that came out of this one. Anthony Richardson going on to IR, which seems like you could have predicted that, 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? And been right today. Probably could have cashed that ticket if you were betting on it in Vegas when it's all said and done. It seems like there's a contingent of people online that are denying that this is offensive line related, and it's like, just watch the Colts on like 2 offensive drives. You're trying to tell me it's not offensive line related when it actually is. Like, we're talking about situations where the ball gets snapped and then people magically end up in the backfield within like a second and a half of the ball getting snapped. The pocket is collapsing from one side, forcing the quarterback to run to the right or to the left, which throws them into the tackle angles of some of the defensive ends that are over there. When they played, I feel like the Rams game has been the peak example of this in terms of what the Colts have been up to all season, and that's one of the few games where like Anthony Richardson doesn't get hurt, right? But nonetheless, man, it was wild. It really was. This game, from beginning to end, the score, a little deceptive. This was an absolutely fantastic game for DeAndre Hopkins, a guy who chose to go to the Tennessee Titans because he wanted a chance to be able to go out there and get some key wins and really take that next step. And he felt like the Tennessee Titans were a more stable organization, I guess, across the board. It does help that, he was with Mike Vrabel in Houston when he was with the Texans and stuff like that, so I'm sure that gives him a deep connection. But this is one of those moments where like DeAndre Hopkins reminds you that he is indeed one of the best guys in the game, aka the Push King. Went out there and did his thing. If you guys don't know, DeAndre Hopkins is like notorious for offensive pass interference that just doesn't get called. He's full on. You can go online and you can see him full-on 2-arm push defensive backs away from him, and that's why I'll always be a person that sides on defense when it comes to penalties, because offensive players get away with bullshit all the time and just don't get it called. Not to say that that's the defining thing about DeAndre Hopkins as a wide receiver, because it's just ridiculous. Like, facts are, the dude's got some of the best hands in the NFL. When he's healthy, 100%, he gets open, he gets tons of separation, and when he doesn't get that separation, he still makes contested catches, and that's what makes him elite in this one. So, if you didn't see it, he had 140 receiving yards when this game was all said and done. He had 7 consecutive catches in this game. At one point, they were over 10 yards. He had 3 catches in this game that were over 20 yards in terms of completion up front. And that's the kind of stuff that the Titans need on a day like they had versus the Colts, where, tractor Cedo season, very much like many of the seasons that happen on Earth, is happening earlier and earlier, and needed more and more often as time is going on, and they just didn't have it in this one. It is not a surprise. The defensive line for the Colts has been insane all season. Not just Grover Stewart up front, but obviously, DeForest Buckner has just been on one. He's got a touchdown, and we're in week 5 of the season. And the Colts are a team that somehow Chris Ballard, who has done a fantastic job of drafting every great defensive player under the sun, but cannot find a group of wide receivers to save his life. He's got a true number one. It's about everybody else beyond that. Maybe Josh Downs is starting to pan out as time goes on a little bit more. The whole tight end situation is a little weird for the Colts too, but that's a discussion for another day. The Colts came into this season with basically they came in with the most inexperienced defensive back room in the NFL, and other than DeAndre Hopkins doing his thing, they have been pretty stacked. Like, especially in a position where it's constantly under scrutiny, constantly under a microscope. They've done a fantastic job this entire season. They did a great job in this game, helping hold the Tennessee Titans to 16 points after they dominated versus the Bengals for a multitude of reasons. But nonetheless, the Titans, a team that is going to just be a low-scoring type of offense because of the pace that they play at, and once again, the lack of consistency from play to play, the lack of options that are legitimately out there to go out there and catch the ball for them up front. The Treylon Burks situation, not looking great so far. It is year number 2 of Treylon Burks. At some point, you have to be a reasonable human being and be like, hey, man, maybe you got to give this guy some time to go out there and figure out how to play NFL wide receiver at one of the highest levels, because the expectation on him is ridiculously high, and he's also not utilized in the manner that a lot of people when he was coming out of college, thought he would be. A lot of people compared him to Deebo Samuels because of his ability to make plays when he has the ball in his hands, and the Titans typically use him in a traditional wide receiver role. So maybe that'll change as time goes on, because that did happen a little bit with another wide receiver we're going to talk about later on in this game. But yeah, man, the Colts elite level defense came out here. They came to play. They also, for the Colts' money, once again, Chris Ballard signed the number 1 backup in the NFL, a.k.a. starting caliber Gardner Minshew, who's going to be out there for a sizable amount of time because of the injury to Anthony Richardson. That is drastically important to how these Colts are going to be able to figure it all out. With Gardner Minshew, there's going to be less of the whole scramble drill situation. It's going to be more emphasis on the separation gained by the wide receivers. Now, whether that's a good or a bad thing, only time will tell. But yeah, we'll see so far, man. It's been wild to watch the Colts be able to be successful with two different types of quarterbacks, right? One trying to figure out how to make it in the NFL, and the other one being Gardner Minshew, who has proven that he can go out there and win football games in the NFL to get a huge divisional win against a team that, if I'm not mistaken, has a winning record, and that's back-to-back games where Gardner Minshew, who up until this season when he played the Ravens in that overtime win, had not beaten the team with a winning record. So, yeah, it's huge win for the Colts in the division in terms of the AFC South, especially with the Jaguars allegedly supposed to be the best team in the division. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about it when it happens. The Texans played the Atlanta Falcons. Cool thing that came out of this one. I am going to do cool shit, weird shit, which is like when I just talk about things that happen in the game that I can't weave into my breakdown for everything. But the cool shit that happened in this one is the screen, or it's a shovel pass for a touchdown to Bijan Robinson, where he caught it on his hip and then kind of did the fake behind the back pass action thing, and I'm assuming that was him trying to regain control of the ball while also gaining yards upfield. It is yet another ridiculous Bo Jackson level type play that gets added to his repertoire that he's already built with the nastiest dead leg that people. His first touchdown in the NFL with the crazy dead leg, breaking three tackles to score his second touchdown in the NFL, and now this crazy shovel pass catch up the middle of the field in the teeth of the defense for the Texans, who, once again, more evidence, and we're at that point. We're 5 weeks into the season, and it's getting kind of tough to deny that the Falcons got one of the better defenses in the NFL. And that could pave the way for them to be very successful, especially with Desmond Ridder kind of figuring it out. He looked really bad last week, looked really good this week, which, hey, guess what? Second-year starter, technically. He didn't start until the back half of last year. We're essentially still within the spans of his rookie year, right? And he has shown some kind of promise. Disappointing that the Texans, who, once again, one of the run defense is going to kill them. The run defense is going to screw them over so hard, because when teams know that they can run on you, it opens up a multitude of things. Like, they have a definitive thing that they know they have at their disposal every single time that they snap the ball, right? The pass rush situation, working on it, getting a little bit better, but it's just not where it needs to be. The Texans making this game relatively close. Good sign, because the Falcons technically are still in the whole conversation in terms of like the NFC South for being able to claim a playoff spot. Don't know how much of a conversation it's going to be about the wild card situation, because there seems to be 3 teams that are legit competitors for the NFC South title. And if you don't get it, they very much seem like a division where whatever team comes in second place is going to have a ton of losses to divisional opponents. They very much seem like one of those type of divisions, and those 3 teams, the Saints, the Buccaneers, and the Falcons in the mix, seem like they are going to be that kind of team. So it's literally division championship or bust to get into the playoffs. But only time will tell. The Giants played the Miami Dolphins. I phrased that incorrectly. The Dolphins played the Giants like a fiddle. 31-16 was the final score in this one. I don't know if you guys know this or not. The Dolphins are super fast. Devon Achane, biggest bummer. My dude out there, Devon Achane, gets hurt in the second half of this game, does not come back. He's now on IR with a swollen knee. Salvon Ahmed, who's actually like pretty fast himself as well, is kind of stepping up into that role. Raheem Mostert, who, by the way, don't feel like we're talking about it enough. He has fumbled in like the last 3 games, and he lost one last week, and I don't think he lost the one that happened this week. He was running like right up the middle, and somebody popped the ball out from behind, and somebody fell on top of it for the Dolphins. But it was kind of weird because it keeps happening. It keeps happening, and he's a running back in the NFL. But yeah, man, I don't know. Maybe something to think about. Maybe we'll think back and we'll look back at this ominously and be like, Ashton did point out it was kind of weird that Raheem Mostert is got that situation going on. He fumbled multiple times in the last couple of games. So, yeah, anyway, I'm not going to talk about that game much more. The best part of that game is there are 16 points on the board for the Giants, and half of them came from a pick six. The first half touchdown for the Giants this season was from Pinnock, one of their defensive backs, intercepting Tua and running it back. I guess it's technically 99 yards because he caught it inside the end zone, but they don't do the whole thing where like they calculate how deep you were into the end zone, because it was over 100 yards that he ran back, if that was the case, right? But yeah, man, it is oh boy. Yeah, it was the Giants being the Giants. They couldn't run the ball. Daniel Jones couldn't find anybody to throw it to. Pretty much every single time he snapped the ball, somebody was already instantaneously in the backfield. Andrew Thomas, hopefully still running his. I guess he's still running his mouth about how he doesn't need to listen to fans or whatever because they all flip burgers. Which, if every fan that was inside of MetLife Stadium was a burger flipper, my guy, or worked at a McDonald's or something like that, it was on a McDonald's salary. Your salary would not be much better than a McDonald's employee. I'll tell you that much, especially with these NFL prices, bro. So, yeah, that was a tough one, man. That's a tough look, especially coming off a week where, oh, my bad. I think it's, what's the total up to? 14 sacks. Daniel Jones getting that David Carr treatment. He's been sacked 14 times in the last 10 days up until that Sunday game. It was pretty funny. I can't even lie. I don't have beef with Daniel Jones. I do have beef with the fact that literally it's so weird how it's so weird to me how the Giants suck when Saquon Barkley's not in the game. It's so weird. It's so weird how they just don't have an offense when they don't have Saquon Barkley. The problem obviously being that they don't have Saquon Barkley in this game. So, but yeah, no, I don't think it would have made much of a difference. The Dolphins are just on a roll, man. Still waiting on that defense to kind of step it up a little bit. Seems a little interesting. The pressure was on point in this game because that's all you really need when it comes to getting to Daniel Jones. This was the kind of game that you pray for. You if you're an NFL player, you sit there, you see the schedule, especially if you're like in week 5 and you know you got contract incentives late in the season, you hope you play the Giants. That's pretty much what it's going to come down to. You hope that you play the Giants because it doesn't look like it's going to get much better. But only time will tell. The Panthers played the Detroit Lions. The final score in that game was 42-24. This is the most detailed of the Snooze Fest games you're going to get from me in terms of a breakdown. I'll say this. It became very evident very early on in this game what was going on. When you're a coach or when you're a player, sometimes you know, every single team has a game plan for how they want to attack another team. And sometimes that game plan is wrong and you figure it out halfway through the first quarter, halfway through the second quarter, third quarter, all that kind of stuff like that. Sometimes you figure it out on play number 1. Or drive number 1, because that's essentially what happened in this game. So the Panthers came out 3 and out on the first drive. Always tough because the first 15 plays are pretty scripted, and most teams in the NFL do pretty good at identifying what they're going to get in terms of looks defensively on the first 15 plays, because some of the stuff is customized, some of the stuff is like relatively consistent. They have scouting departments that are in charge of forward scouting, which people rarely talk about, but it's the dudes that literally are in charge of watching the film of what teams have done the 3 weeks leading up to the game. So there's a person who is in charge of solely scouting into the future, right? And I think these are like quality control guys who are like putting data points in to tell you what formations, to be able to track tendencies, which can glean you some information as to what can help you glean some information as to what's going on. I'm looking at my ticker and it doesn't seem like it's correct. Oh, it's because this is a different one. Anyway, I'm moving on. That seemed like it happened instantaneously in this game. The Detroit Lions, they were feasting. You realize like pretty quickly early on in this game, the Lions were on a different level in terms of like individual player skill level and in terms of like actual execution of their game plan. And then the Panthers rally a little bit. Towards the middle of the first quarter, they kind of get it together to recover from like being embarrassed the first 2 drives of this game, because the first drive is the first offensive drive is a 3 and out. The second drive is the first defensive set is a touchdown for the Lions, like relatively quickly. They score in 4 plays because David Montgomery, when he is healthy, is unstoppable. Ladies and gentlemen, the defense played 2 drives, and they had a defensive end and Aiden Hutchinson jump the screen and intercept it, which is what happened for the Lions, not for the Panthers. So it was pretty tough. They had no idea what the fuck they were doing for the first quarter of this game, and it was pretty obvious. Now, after they kind of rallied a little bit, they got a good drive going. Bryce Young showed why he's significantly better than literally like probably the bottom 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, even though people are on the internet and they're just kind of obsessed with this idea of like, oh man, like Bryce Young is terrible, he's not the guy. And I'm like, you should watch football more. The Panthers, they finally started doing it, guys. I know every person has been waiting for this to happen. They are weird like me, and they've been paying attention to this and to see it happen. Laviska Shenault Jr., who, if you're familiar with, has the tendency very similar to Isaiah Pacheco in the fact that gravity is his greatest enemy. He's violent when he has the ball in his hands. Has running back tendencies, but plays wide receiver. Isaiah Pacheco, obviously just a running back straight up. But Laviska Shenault has shades of Deebo Samuel when he has the ball in his hand in terms of being able to read holes and get up the field. The Panthers had a wide receiver reverse. They had a short reverse where he basically took, they basically used halfback counter blocking, or was it zone blocking up the middle? And he found the hole, cut up the middle, got the Panthers down to the 5-yard line, set them up for a touchdown a couple of plays later, but they're starting to use Laviska to kind of throw people off the scent of them handing the ball off to Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard, who, for the situation, and I say for the situation because, you know, there's some issues across the offensive line. There's also some issues in terms of like how the offense gets pretty predictable because it's typically running while they're typically running plays while they're behind by large numbers in some cases, and they try to limit the situations where people can tee up Bryce Young and focus on solely covering him. They try to work on not having the ball fly down the field as much. That seems to be a thing for the Panthers. Like, very few of their throws are deep downfield. A lot of their stuff is like yards after catch from their wide receivers. Jonathan Mingo kind of getting into the groove a little bit. We saw it's been interesting, to say the least. It looks like a team that has more than its fair share of issues, that is somehow figuring out how to not completely embarrass themselves, except in this game they kind of fell apart, and we'll talk about why that happened. So Jared Goff doesn't have an incompletion in this game until the Lions are up 14-0, and it's 11:21 to go in the second quarter. The incompletion, the first one, was a flat-out drop by a wide receiver. So it's not even on Jared Goff in terms of where he threw the ball. He's having a career year again. Like, last year felt like it was a career year. Now he's taking another step forward, and I get it. Some of it's a product of the opponent that he's playing. He can't control that, right? It seems like it's all, especially with the way the Bears have been playing, the Packers, and it seems like it's a foregone conclusion that the Lions are a playoff team. And they play like it. They play like all these pieces are finally starting to come together, and they play like they got the right guy in charge. They play like they got the right guy who's got the good mix of jock brain and smart football brain to go along with it. So that's good to see. Like I said, this game might have had a chance for the Panthers to be able to hang around and be able to do something. But like I mentioned before, the Panthers defense got a bunch of stops. They got a stop on 4th and 3 with this crazy hit from Troy Hill. It was a swing route ran by David Montgomery ran a swing route. Jared Goff threw it out there, and Troy Hill breaks as Jared Goff is turning his shoulders to throw the ball. And by the time the ball gets there, he lights up David Montgomery. And one play later, Miles Sanders fumbles, and the Lions get the ball right back. Literally one play later. So they stop him on 4th down. Huge emotional swing, getting pumped up, huge hit. Everybody's turned up on the sideline, and then the thing happens, right? The fumble comes in. So that means before halftime starts, by the way, don't worry, I'll let you know. The Lions scored 10 plays later off of that fumble, right? They have 3 turnovers by the time halftime rolls around, and the 3rd turnover is an interception from Bryce Young because a guy by the name of Jerry Jacobs, who is our naming names person for this week, a player who you kind of dive into the background for this guy, he lurked the shit out of Bryce Young. Another DB tricking Bryce Young into believing that he is not there. Jerry Jacobs is an interesting character. Interesting cat. He started his football career at Hutchinson Community College in Kansas. When I saw that, something in my deep echoey brain kind of rattled around, and I was like, community football team, college, Kansas, football, JUCO. And then I instantaneously, I know, I said it, and you're thinking it too, last chance U. I went and checked. Jerry Jacobs played against Independence U in the season that Last Chance U was with Independence in Independence, Kansas. So it was pretty cool to go back and check that out. He actually was a part of one of the games because Hutchinson was like number 1 in the state in terms of the rankings or something like that, and like number 12 in the country when they played each other. So it was a huge deal. Independence wins off like a safety or something, and I remember it being a big deal in the show. After that season with Hutchinson, he transfers to Arkansas State, which, if you don't know, is a part of what people like to call the Fun Belt, aka the Sun Belt Conference. He plays pretty well there. I think he gets like 4 interceptions in one season. It's a good year for a DB. He then transfers to Arkansas, which is like I'm not saying it's rare, but it's like uncommon for you to be like Arkansas State to Arkansas State School to like other state school within the same state. But yeah, he only played 4 games with Arkansas, then he chose not to come back to the team after an injury so he could prepare for the NFL draft, which is kind of interesting because he went undrafted. So yeah, he tore his ACL 1 year in college, which is why he ended up playing. He got hurt at Arkansas State and didn't finish the season there. And then he tore his ACL his first season in the NFL. And on Sunday, he got his 4th interception in his very young career. So it was pretty cool. It was, I mean, honestly, like I said, he got lurked. Like Bryce Young got textbook lurked. He was sitting in the lower flat. Jerry Jacobs was sitting in the lower flat. He was actually covering 2 people at one time. He was waiting to see if the ball was going to get thrown over his head. He drops instantly and is able to catch the ball, right? Finishes it off. Tries to run it back, like kind of meanders from like literally one sideline to the other, and then gets tackled by an offensive lineman. Got to work on the playmaking, you know what I mean? Anyway, that was the Panthers' 3rd turnover, like I promised you, before halftime. So most good teams cannot come back from 3 turnovers at halftime. The pass protection was actually pretty decent for the Panthers up front, which is hard to say for a ton of the performances they put out this season. Taylor Motton, who's the right tackle for the Panthers, actually did a really good job against Aiden Hutchinson until later in this game when, the Panthers were in like must-pass situations. He locked up Hutchinson's spin move like multiple times. Don't know what the deal is with Hutch, but he was like not wearing gloves in this game, and I thought that was kind of weird. Sorry, guys. Got to keep the voice lubricated, if you will. But yeah, he wasn't wearing gloves. He had the wrist protectors on. And like I said, he intercepted a pass earlier in this game one-handed without gloves on, which is unheard of. Might as well be devil magic in the current day NFL, right? To be able to catch a ball without gloves on. We'll talk about a team that couldn't catch a ball with gloves on a little bit later. The late score that made it 24-14 in this game inspired the Panthers to go for an onside kick, and this is it should have been under the cool shit category. But it's not. Anyway, their kicker back heel kicked it, so he imagine a person standing normally, feet shoulder width apart. He ran up to the ball from like 2 yards to the right of it, and then flipped his right foot behind his left foot and kicked the ball with his right foot to the right-hand side. It's a thing in soccer, and it's difficult to do on the football because the base of a football is narrower than the center of it. But he pulled it off, and they recovered it. It was pretty. I think most teams have hands teams on both sides of the onside kick attempt and everything. So that was one of those situations, but it was under the cool shit category because you rarely see a kicker able to actually pull it off. He got it to like 14 yards, so he got like really good contact on it, but it was just too fast for his gunners to get down there and have a play on the ball. Other things in the cool shit category: Aiden Hutchinson so far this season in the last over the last 3 games has combined for 4.5 sacks. He's got an interception. He forced a fumble and he recovered one. Crazy shit, wild shit. The Lions have surpassed the franchise record for consecutive games with 20 points, and it's 14 in this one, so they scored 42 in this one. Pretty wild. Weird shit category. Chandler Zavala, who's the center for the Panthers. I'm sure some of you saw this when you watched the game. He snaps the ball and engages Isaiah Bugg in like what looks to be a pretty typical run block. His helmet hits Isaiah Buggs' helmet, and then he passes out. Like, he goes unconscious. Like, it seemed like it was relatively normal. It was like textbook shit that they talk about for micro concussions, and this one is like a micro concussion had like the effects of a normal concussion. He was like unconscious on the ground, and they stretchered him out. He like gave the thumbs up and everything like that, and when you go online, you type his name in after the game, the conversation was like whether or not Chandler was going to travel back home with the team. So, yeah, it was one of those situations. By the way, even wilder to go along with that, one play later, Emmanuel Mosley tears his other ACL in his first game back from tearing his other ACL. So he tore his right one, and then one play into coming back, he tears his left one. Absolute nightmare for any human being. I can't think of one person one person I know in real life that I would wish that on. The mental strife that it must go from you are a top tier elite level athlete and your legs like instantaneously you get one play in after recovering from an ACL surgery and you tear your other one. Wild. Bro, wild stuff. Wishing Emmanuel the best, man. Like that's heartbreaking. It really is. Speaking of other heartbreaking things, the Jets played the Broncos. So the final score of this was 31-21. I think this is the most points the Jets have scored in probably a year and a half. I should look into that actually. Hold on. Jets, they're 2-3 by the way. This game they broke a 3-game losing streak. So good for them on that one, I guess. I'm not really like necessarily rooting for the Jets. So they scored 31 versus the Browns, scored 31 versus the Bears last year, November 27th. So it's been almost a year. Almost a year since the last time that they scored 31 points. So, yeah, or 30-plus points because they scored 27 versus the Packers last year, which is kind of weird. It's weird thinking about, like, the Jets actually being able to... Oh, wait, I know why. That was when Mike White was playing. Mike White, backup quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 31-21 was the final score in this game. This game opened with a seemingly innocuous story about a backup running back turned starter, Jaleel McLaughlin, who everybody's like scrambling to pick him up after they were scrambling to pick him up because Javonte Williams is going to be down for a little while. If you're not familiar with his movies, he actually was the all-time leading rusher in the NCAA, and then he was an undrafted free agent, right? Who at one point lived when he was a kid, when he was younger, he lived in his family's car because they bounced from place to place as his mom struggled to keep a job that actually paid well enough for them to be able to live in an apartment and for her to be able to take care of, I believe, 3 kids. Super difficult. And I'm sure it's hard. That's the kind of stuff that motivates you as a person. Anyway, this was his day. They lost this game 31-21. He had 100 yards in this one and a touchdown too. So it was pretty dope. I can't lie, man. That was amazing. These coaches have that was pretty cool for Sean Payton to, kind of put him on Front Street like that, give him the opportunity. And, he essentially locked himself in, right? He's got one game, 100 yards and a touchdown. He's going to be getting more carries. He's going to get more opportunities regardless of what happened in this game. He got 100 yards versus a New York Jets defense that, if they had a normal offense in the NFL, they would be top 5, maybe even number 1 in the NFL when it's all set. They'd be competing with the Colts and the 49ers to be the top defense in the NFL. Going back to the coaches, both of these coaches have a really good understanding of their teams. Based off of the play calling, they want to keep the ball out of their quarterback's hands as much as possible. And like I said, elite level understanding of your team. Keeping the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands, keeping the ball out of Zach Wilson's hands. Great idea. Fantastic idea. The Broncos traded away Randy Gregory with the intent to focus on younger guys. The Broncos got 4 sacks in this game. 3 of them were from dudes who were in their second year in the NFL. Nick Bonito, who was really good last year, linebacker position, and then Elijah Garcia, who went to Rice. I thought that was kind of crazy. Plays D tackle. I thought it was pretty impressive. You don't see too many dudes from Rice making it to the NFL, but here we are. Elijah Garcia, shout out, stand up. I'm pumped about that. I live in Houston, Texas, where Rice is located, so it's always cool to see somebody be able to make it out. And when I say make it out like Rice is the hood or something like that, it's not. It's just I love telling this story. When you go to Rice's arena, basketball arena, I think it's called Tudor Fieldhouse. Lets you know. It's called Tudor Fieldhouse, and it lets you know. You walk inside. They don't have their conference championships hanging from the rafters. You know what they have hanging from the rafters, baby? All the Nobel Peace Prize laureates that they have at their school, and they got enough to go from one side of the arena to the other side, baby. It ain't 1 or 2. It's double digits, from what I understand. So yeah. Weird shit category for this one. The field goal in the first quarter was the first time this season the Jets scored in the first quarter. That's pretty sad. A safety. You can go see the alarm go off in Russ's head in the play where the safety happens, but he can't find which direction the human missile is coming from. And this is when by the way, this is the messed up part, they didn't even credit that defensive tackle who got Russ down with a safety, because the safety was triggered off the fact that Russ threw the ball to nobody. So you got called for intentional grounding, which made it a safety because he did it in the end zone. I think you should give credit. I think, he doesn't throw the ball unless that guy tackles him. I feel like he should get credit for that safety because you don't get too many of those. Breece Hall returns to the place where he tore his ACL. He balled the fuck out in this game, 177 yards and a touchdown. He had a 72-yard rushing touchdown early on in this game where he broke multiple Broncos players' ankles, like embarrassingly so. You should go watch that. It was probably one of the best runs of the entire season so far. And it's really cool. One, I think it was like almost a year to that day where he tore his ACL, and then it was in the place where he tore it. So that was pretty cool. Breece Hall for the Jets, by the way. What a backpack. What a backpack showing from Breece to carry the entirety of the Jets offense. And you got a really good running back when everybody and their mom knows that the ball's going to him, like 2/3 of the plays throughout the course of the game, and they still can't stop him. Crazy. This is the funniest sad shit I've seen in a while. At the 3:30 mark in the third quarter, the Broncos forced an OT on a muffed punt, and then one play later on a triple reversed attempt by the Broncos offense, they fumble it right back, and the Jets recover instantly. They recovered a muffed punt. They snapped the ball. Russ tosses the ball. Russ snaps it, Wide receiver from the right comes over. He tosses it to him, and then a wide receiver from the left runs behind him, like where the halfback would be in a typical I formation. He tosses it to him. He tosses it behind the wide receiver. He bobbles it, and then a D lineman who's literal, like the smart play you can make is he's like, I'm not going to chase down those wide receivers, but what I can do is try and split the field in half by rushing completely vertical, and because he did what he was supposed to do, he ends up right in front of the ball and lands right on top of it. Saddest shit I've seen in a while. By the way, deceptive score, one of the most deceptive scores of the week. 18-13 was the score to start this fourth quarter. Remember, the final score was 31-21. 18-13 was the start, the score at the start of the fourth quarter. Yes, ridiculous, right? The Broncos offense ran so many heavy sets. And when I said heavy sets, I mean they were running like double tight ends. They were running formations that only had 2 wide receivers split out. They were running formations that only had 3 wide receivers split out. And they had one of them close enough to the line of scrimmage because they were trying to do everything in their power to figure out how to block these outside linebackers for the Jets long enough for Russ to be able to find somebody open downfield. The problem is, in the process of giving them extra blockers or people to throw chips, it was taking those guys longer to get downfield and get open and get separation. And so Russ didn't have the time that he needed because the D linemen were still winning for the Jets, even with the help. And that's where the problem finds itself, right? That was the amazing part. That's a product of an absolutely astute level defense in terms of they didn't need much help in terms of the blitzing because their guys were able to win basically 2-on-1s multiple times over, or somebody else was winning regardless of where they sent the chip blocks at. And then there was a couple times they tried to do it on both sides and it just didn't work. There was a couple times they snapped the ball and dudes ran past the tackles and got into the backfield. It was wild. Zach Wilson played like shit. He also played pretty well at the same time. So I call that massive improvement because he really only did the first part for pretty much every single time he snapped the ball last season. He only did the play like shit part for most of the season, right? He had 8 plays where he threw a completion that gained over 10 yards, and he went 19 for 26 for 199. Not great, not bad, you know what I mean? Especially for what we've come to expect out of Zach Wilson. Now, the Jets are very familiar with their play style, and they just have to hope Zach can hit someone every once in a while on these big plays so they can set up the run. They pass to set up the run, and that's cool, man. Zach did just enough for them to be able to win this game, and then he did too much because in the fourth quarter, when the game was still relatively close, they're driving down the field. Zach tries to make one of those big plays to kind of ward off the pass rush, the run defense from the Jets, the run defense from the Broncos, and they come up with, you guessed it, an interception. Nothing good. There's not many times you're just going to get completely away scot-free without Zach Wilson having a bad time out there. So, I don't get, after this game was over with, Zach Wilson throws the interception. The Broncos go down, they get a score real quick. The Jets get another score in return, and then they bleed out the clock because the Broncos have a fumble from Russell Wilson. And then they recover it. Sean Payton, not happy about it, obviously, in a situation where Russ could have just thrown the ball away, stopped the clock, and kept the down and distance and everything. Or it kept the distance, not the down necessarily, and moved on to the next play. Instead, it's an instant turnover, and it eliminates any chance that the Broncos had of coming back and winning this game, and the level of frustration is already skyrocketing, let's be for real. TBH, don't know how the Jets coaches were super pumped about this game. I get it, winning is few and far between when you're a Jets player, fan, and a coach. But thinking that this is like a definitive stamp on that whole thing, like Nathaniel Hackett had one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history last year, which is the comment that Sean Payton made, right? Sean Payton's had a defense that's given up 70 points this season versus the Dolphins. That happened. That was real life. And then to lose to the Jets, who, coming into this game, were 1-3. They are now 2-3. It didn't feel like they definitively won this game because at the end of it, it still came down to like they needed something absolutely stupid to happen from the Broncos offense for them to be able to secure this game away. Because it really felt like the Broncos were coming back on their ass again. Once again, another week passes, another week of the Broncos only playing offense in the first and the fourth quarter. That's happened like 3 weeks in a row. I'm dead serious. Go look at it. Go look it up. Other than the Dolphins game, that's essentially what happened. And you can make an argument that some of these games in the fourth quarter, the teams that they're going up against, they not really out here trying to stop them from scoring. They're trying to get the ball back so they can kill the clock themselves, right? Cool shit that happened in this game. The Jets defense was so nasty work, nasty business from the New York Jets up front. They, at the 6:47 mark of the fourth quarter in this game, in the 6:47 mark of the fourth quarter, the Broncos had 1 net yard in the second half. 1 yard halfway through the fourth. And then it was even more concerning because then they went on to go do some the crazy shit that I talked about, right? That was pretty wild. I can't even lie. Moving on to the heartbreakers category, that was a long snooze fest, but some of those games were pretty boring, but you could still take a lot from them. The Bengalis, the Cincinnati Bengals, as some people would say, they beat the Arizona Cardinals 34-20. Another deceptive score. Let's talk about it. The Bengals looked normal for the first time all season on drive number 1 of this one. They ended up getting a touchdown. The Bengals defense came in with like a relatively simple goal. They were trying to shut that run down. And to their credit, to the Bengals' credit, one, they've been playing defense really well all season, and for some reason they said, they were like, oh, the Bengals have not played well against the run all year. And I'm like, what? Have you watched the way? I mean, have you seen their situation? Basically, their team was dependent on them to go out there and win the game. They damn near were like, hey, man, we need y'all to score some points or we not going to have a good time. And, I mean, they almost had to, right? As a matter of fact, it's really funny you say that because they did score points in this game. 34-20 was the final score, and when I was talking to myself on that one. Anyway, the Cardinals said they kept, like I said, the Bengals defense, simple goal: stop the run, set up more pass plays, get busy, and hit the shit out of Josh Dobbs. The Cardinals said, cool, bro, watch this. They put together back-to-back touchdown drives after the first drive of the game for them was a 3-and-out, and it looked pretty bad. There was one point where Josh Dobbs got hit by 3 Bengals players at one time, and that's usually not good in terms of like pass blocking up front. And then that was pretty much like that was the worst of the pass blocking situation because the Bengals are doing a pretty good job of getting upfield and attacking, but as the game got on, the balance of the offense was really kind of throwing them off a little bit and slowed them down because they weren't doing their thing. The Cardinals said, that's cool, bro. Watch this. Like I said, back-to-back touchdowns. Nasty work from Josh Dobbs up front. Top 15 quarterback level production, and he not getting paid like it. Playing better than Deshaun Watson, the guy who's getting paid the most money in the NFL. Playing better than Russell Wilson. Playing better than Zach Wilson, right? Playing better than all these dudes got drafted above him. Playing better than all these dudes that's getting paid more than him. Josh Dobbs, I don't think you can do most improved or whatever, or comeback player of the year, because you come back from nothing, right? Josh Dobbs at the time was most famous for the fact that he was like a literal rocket scientist. He had an internship at NASA. I think Josh played at Tennessee and was an aerospace engineer, and he still is an engineer, which is the wild part because some guys just got it all. By the way, they showed his parents at one point during this game in the box that they were at, and his mom is like a printer, bro. Like copy paste. They have the same skin tone. By the way, if you don't know, Josh Dobbs does have alopecia. So there's a lot of stuff where he's like met cheerleaders who have alopecia and they like take photos together, which by the way is like the go-to. Like there's so many situations where that happens throughout the course. Like Ryan Shazier has a bunch of photos where he takes photos with like cheerleaders that have alopecia, and I get it. There's a lot of stigma that comes with it because I went to college with a young lady who had alopecia. By the way, yesterday was actually her birthday. Happy birthday, Claire. She, when we were freshmen in college, had alopecia but didn't tell anyone. So the way her face looked was she drew on her eyebrows, and it was a lot like she had makeup to kind of like balance it out. To balance it all out or whatever, because guess what? Like, kids are shitty. College kids are shitty too. I would hear, like, I legitimately recall hearing conversations where, like, I went to a Lutheran school, I went to a Lutheran school called Valparaiso University out in the middle of nowhere. It's a rich kid school, and a lot of the young ladies that I went to school with at the time, they were young ladies, the same age as me, right? They used to like talk shit about her because they were like, she's so fake. Look at how much makeup she has to pack on. And then I come to find out months later, because she ends up dating my roommate at the time, who now has like a girlfriend and 3 kids. Sorry, my nose is super congested. I apologize. Anyway, this is why I'll never make it in TV. But she gets made fun of because of that situation. And then, she keeps it a secret because it's, I guess, embarrassing to her. But I think it's one of those things where, like, if a person knows it up front, they understand a lot about, like, why you do the things that you do, right? But it's also her, like, it's her situation. And she shouldn't have to explain herself for people to not be mean to her when she's done nothing to them, right? That was one of the situations. Anyway, I was talking about Josh Dobbs because he has alopecia, and so did Ryan Shazier when he still has alopecia. There's actually a really cool Players Tribune article. I think I've mentioned it on here before, but Players Tribune articles are articles written by like professional athletes, and it's a website paid for or like endorsed, started by Derek Jeter. But, like, they hire, I had a buddy who works for the Santa Cruz Warriors who actually has an NBA championship ring. He tried to apply to work for the Players Tribune as one of the people who helps, like, transcribe these articles that the players end up writing. But Ryan Shazier told the story about how later in his life, this is before the accident happened. If you don't know, Ryan Shazier was paralyzed from the waist down during an NFL football game, and he has gotten back to the point where he can like walk again. He has a podcast too, and I don't know the name of his podcast. I just heard an ad for it at one point, but I'm glad he's doing well, man. You want to talk about like a guy who could have made a shit ton of money. He was like Fred Warner level-esque, right? Anyway, he has a Players Tribune article where he talks about his hair growing back for the first time in his life. Like when he's like 32 or 30 or something like that, he's in the elevator and he just doesn't shave because his body allegedly doesn't grow hair. And he's in the elevator with one of his friends or like one of his teammates with the Steelers, and they're like, "Hey, bro, like you got hair on your head." And he's like, "What are you talking about, bro? Like that's super. It'd be fucked up to tell that to somebody who has alopecia. Be like, you got hair on your head." Anyway, he says that, and he like touches his head, and he can feel like the peach fuzz on his head for the first time ever. And then he's just like, yeah, it didn't matter to me because I got to the point where like I'd come to grips and understanding, just like most people do later on in life, come to understand like my existence. And like I don't need to have these things that everybody else has for me to feel like I'm a person. I am a person. And that's kind of the energy that I get, or the vibes that I get from Josh Dobbs. And I thought it was pretty cool. I just wanted to tell that story, that roundabout story, how it connects to like that random woman I met in college and how she was really nice, and everybody, there was a good chunk of ladies who were really mean to her, even though she had done nothing to them other than exist. And I think it says, like many people say it all the time, but I'll say it here. And it's a corny phrase, but it's true. It says a lot more about them than it does about her. Anyway, happy birthday, Claire. I know you're not watching this show, but happy birthday. Anyway, the Cardinals defense finished with, where were we at? Whoa, I scrolled down a little bit too far. Anyway, the Bengals were cooking in this one, but the Cardinals were like cooking even hotter. They were up 14 to 10 vast majority of this game. And they actually had a moment where they stuffed the Bengals on what would have been the drive that changed, that was the lead-changing drive for them to grab the lead before halftime. And they stuffed them on like 4th and 3 on the 4-yard line or something like that. So Joe Mixon gets 2 of the 3 yards that he needs, and he ends up on the 2-yard line or the 1-yard line or something like that. And the Cardinals come up with one of the many stops that they had during this game. They snap the ball. They try and use, by the way, the tush push, and it doesn't work because guess what? They don't have the best offensive line in the NFL. It does not work. They get like a yard out of it. They end up running 5 wide the next play, and on it wasn't even a slant. It was It was a post. He throws it behind the Josh Dobbs throws it behind the wide receiver. It gets tipped by a linebacker, and then the wide receiver almost catches it with one hand, and instead he tips it into Cam Taylor-Britt's hands, and he runs it in for a touchdown. It's a pick six off like the 7-yard line, bro. And everybody's just kind of stunned because you don't believe that it happened for like the longest period of time. Because when you're watching it on TV, you kind of think that maybe the ball skimmed off the ground and landed in Cam Taylor's hands because of how fast it was coming out of Josh Dobbs' hand. He was trying to weave it in between a very small window, and the window was a little too small, and it turned into a touchdown. And that was one of the 34 points that the Bengals get in this one. And you can make an argument that the Cardinals are in this game. And we'll talk about why that's not necessarily the case a little bit later on. But yeah, that was disheartening. That was one of those moments very similar to what we talked about with the Panthers, where they get the stop on defense on 4th and 3, and then a play later, Miles Sanders fumbles the ball right back to the Lions, right? Cam Taylor-Britt continues what has become his statement season as like the new dude in town. Jesse Bates is gone. They don't have Eli Apple anymore. They basically got rid of their entire secondary and started having faith in the rookies that they drafted. Cam Taylor-Britt is a dude that they drafted, and he is stepping the fuck up. Anyway, the Cardinals fucked up. The Cardinals are fucked up, snapping the ball to their what? Oh yeah, no, that was just me. Sorry, I was looking at my notes, and it was me describing what happened. What happened on the pick six. Anyway, the Cardinals defense finishes the first half with 3 sacks, and they were all on 3rd down, which is ridiculous for a defense because they basically they gave up 1 touchdown to Jamar Chase, right? And it would have been 14-7 if it were not for that pick six. So the second half has more of what was a really interesting back and forth, especially in the third quarter, right? By this point, James Conner gets hurt off of an insane run that he had. It was like a 35-yard run where he breaks 3 tackles, and he breaks the Bengals contain play where they use a defensive back for the backside of the play to go in there and try and like sweep out the running back from their ankles or whatever. He backspins off of off that DB, runs up the field, gets the first down. Somebody tries to another DB tries to tackle him low. He lets him hit him in the quad, and then he's like too swole. His quad doesn't move, and he just keeps running. Slips out of that tackle, and then spins again off another DB. And somebody finally submarine tackles him to the point where he has to jump up in the air. He lands on his elbow, and it kind of jams his arm into his shoulder, and it injures him to the point where he has to leave the game. They send in this guy named Amari DeMarcado, and bad news for the Bengals, dude does not miss a beat. His first full drive in this game, he actually scores his first touchdown in the NFL. It was pretty dope. He played for TCU last year. So once again, another, like we talked about Darius Davis, who was playing running back for the Chargers last week when they had their best rushing performance without Austin Eckler ever since Austin Eckler became a Charger, 155 rushing yards in total. And Amari DeMarcado, one of those guys for the TCU, he didn't skip a beat. Like I said, he scored a touchdown. It was pretty cool. James Conner had a sick run, like I mentioned before, 35 yards. This is cool shit. Just reading off the notes. Jamar Chase, I don't know if you guys heard or not, had the greatest day in the history of Bengals wide receivers ever. He had 15 catches, which is the most any Bengals wide receivers ever had in a single game. He had 3 touchdowns and 192 yards. By the way, the 3 touchdowns and the 192 are not career highs for Jamar Chase, who is only in his 3rd year in the NFL. Oh, man, ridiculous. For the Cardinals, this game ends with the 4 straight turnovers. So they got stuffed on 4th down late in the 3rd, and then they have a fumble in the 4th. Then they have an interception on what would turn out to be their final competitive drive, and then they turn the ball over on downs in their last drive of the game. So yeah, that tells you everything you need to know, right? Like it was all good till it wasn't. The turnovers bit them in the ass so hard, man. They had 5 turnovers in this game, and it was ridiculous, man. So one last thing that was in the cool shit category, there's this guy named Kwame Lassiter. a practice squad player from the Bengals got elevated to the active roster. Happens every single Sunday, right? I will say this. If you want to hear some of the best stories in the NFL, look at the dudes who get elevated from the practice squad to the active roster, because they have been battling since camp, since they got into the NFL. To one, stay on the practice squad, and then two, finally find their way onto the 53-man roster and make that big money. Anyway, he was in the captain's huddle for the Bengals, which is weird because he's not a captain, right? Like, they don't have a captain on the team is not a dude that was like on the practice squad and then gets elevated to the active 53-man roster for the first time ever in his NFL career in week 5. That's not a team captain. Sorry, no disappointment. That'd be wild if he was like, no, he's had such a drastic impact on the team from the practice squad that we all voted him captain. No, that's not what happened. This was Zach Taylor and the coaching staff for the Bengals doing some cool shit here. Kwame Lassiter is the son of Kwame Lassiter Sr., who played in the NFL for a long period of time. And when Kwame Lassiter, the Jr., who's the practice squad player elevated to the active roster, was born, he was born where the Arizona Cardinals play in Chandler, Arizona. So they let him be the captain for the coin flip. And in the final drive of this game for the Bengals, and I think it was the last pass play that they called, it was a simple like hook route to get Kwame Lassiter his first catch in the NFL ever in his hometown in front of his family. Pretty dope. Can't lie. I think he gained like 4 yards off of it. It's pretty cool. Weird shit that happened in this one. Like I said, this game has to be tied for Eagles-Rams for most deceptive score, because it was like a 1-touchdown game going into the fourth quarter, and then it just went completely off the rails. The Cardinals had 3 turnovers, and 2 of them were in the fourth quarter officially. The other was a TD. So they had a pick six, they had an interception, and a fumble that got recovered, and then they turned it over on downs 3 times throughout the course of this game. I count turnover on downs as a turnover, mainly because it says turnover on downs in the name, but it doesn't count officially as a turnover when it's all said and done. There's another bug in here. Hopefully I caught it midair, and that would be so cool. But yeah, man, the defense, they did their job. Like, if you go back and watch this game, the defense did their fucking job. They held it down for as long as they possibly fucking could, and the offense just couldn't get it going. The offense had a great start to this game. Like I said before, 14 points. They had 2 back-to-back touchdown scoring drives, and then they scored They scored 6 points, which, by the way, they scored another touchdown, and then because they cut their holder last week, they had a new holder in the game, and they missed the PAT after they scored the 3rd touchdown in the game. Right. That kind of stuff, right? Like weird shit like that. Moving on. Let's talk about some other weird shit. Heartbreaker category. Kansas City Chiefs 27, Minnesota Vikings 20. It happened again. Very much the hangover. It happened again, guys. The Vikings lost another 1-possession game. The worst part is their defense seems to be getting better every single week. They did not rely on the blitz-heavy game plans that we've seen in the first 4 weeks of the season. Maybe that's a testament to not necessarily respecting the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. Who knows? They generated true 4-man pass rush pressure, which it's hard to do just in general in the NFL, let alone against a guy like Patrick Mahomes, but they were getting in there. They were getting busy. Their DB coverage was ridiculous on the short yardage stuff that the Chiefs usually use to survive. It doesn't help that there's a point during this game where Travis Kelce catches the ball, tries to plant his foot and cut, and he rolls his ankle. It's wild to see a direct correlation to Travis Kelce being in the game and not being in the game, because as soon as Travis Kelce gets out, none of the offense works anymore. None of the offense works anymore. They run a screen pass Isaiah Pacheco. 4 dudes tackle Isaiah Pacheco in the backfield. They run a hook route with Kadarius Toney. He catches the ball. He caught the ball, and then he gets lit up for like a 2-yard gain. They shut it down. They shut it down on anything that was 10 yards and under, and they were standing there, and they were driving so hard because I guess in their minds, they didn't have any threats that were going on behind them that they couldn't handle with like Harrison Phillips. So Harrison Smith. Why not keep Harrison Phillips is a real player who plays for the Vikings, plays D tackle. That's the second week in a row that I've forgotten who Harrison Smith is, and I've known who Harrison Smith is since he got drafted into the NFL. But yeah, that was pretty wild. And then the second that Travis Kelce gets back into the game from that ankle injury, they cruised down the field and scored a touchdown. So, yeah, it was pretty wild. Weird shit in this game. The first play of this game was a fumble. More of the devil magic for the Vikings. It was, by the way, a receiving fumble, which is like damn near impossible because you have to have the ball, and then after that you have to take 3 steps to confirm that you've caught the ball. And once you do that, then you can fumble the ball away. But if it goes out of bounds, you keep possession and they just move the ball to where it fumbled out of bounds. So like it's really difficult to be a receiver that fumbles the ball in the NFL, and yet somehow the first play of the game, a throw to a tight end that's not TJ Hawkinson, it becomes a fumble. By the way, they tried to throw to that tight end a little bit later on in the game, and he dropped it. Like he ran down the sideline. I want to say it was a wheel route. He had some kind of separation, not a ton, but Kirk Cousins dropped it in there. He just couldn't wrangle it in. So maybe he doesn't play anymore. Who knows? Justin Watson has a clear no catch called a catch, and it turns into a field goal for Kansas City. That was interesting. Justin Watson then later on in the game, after the Vikings forced the Chiefs deep into their own territory to the point where they snapped the ball from shotgun and Patrick Mahomes is inside of his own end zone. Justin Watson mosses a DB who mistimed a throw that was kind of a duck from Patrick Mahomes because he got hit as he threw it because, once again, that pressure from the Vikings was there. The Vikings offense felt like they actually were moving, and Jordan Addison, by the way, if you got a chance to in fantasy, you might want to get that guy. He's the number 2 guy, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot tougher from here on out because they won't have Justin Jefferson anymore. He had a hamstring injury that ended up putting him on IR for the foreseeable future, and now there's rumors that he may not even be coming back. There's rumors that he may not be coming back, or he's going to take his sweet time to recover from his hamstring injury, which is understandable. But Jordan Addison is really establishing himself as like a real wide receiver in the NFL. I thought that was pretty cool to watch that happen. As time goes on, this bug will not die. I am very sorry about that. Anyway, Justin Jefferson getting covered by everybody and their mom under the sun, right? L'Jarius Sneed was out there doing his thing. And there's a good chunk of time of every game that the Vikings have played this season so far where Justin Jefferson is just not available, and they got to find other people to throw the ball to. It's usually TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, and KJ Osborne, right? Jordan Addison has slowly been creeping his way up that list in terms of the priority overall, and I think that that's huge for a Vikings team that really, with Adam Thielen, they had a good 1-2 punch going on there, but Jordan Addison is getting better as time goes on. The Chiefs defense basically turned into a totally different team once the Vikings got into the red zone, which explains the 20 points on the board, by the way. It felt like the Vikings were cruising, and then as soon as they got right around that 20-yard marker, all of a sudden there were 7 dudes in the backfield as soon as Kirk Cousins snapped the ball, and it worked really well. The Vikings defense late in this game with a score of 27-20, and they had 9 minutes and 5 seconds on the clock, forced a 4th down, and set up a game-tying drive at least for the Vikings offense. So that happens. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what happens after that in a second. Patrick Mahomes has beaten every team in the NFL except the Chiefs. At this point, the Chiefs' 4th down play was similar to the dead fish trick play that happened. So at one point during the third quarter, they were on 4th and 2, and they were gonna go for it, and and they decided not to. And so they go to the line. They're trying to trick the defense into jumping across to draw the offsides. And at one point, Patrick Mahomes walks over to the sideline really slowly, like a lot of quarterbacks typically do. But he's making sure to walk completely parallel because the second that because as Patrick Mahomes is walking, the center can read whether or not the defense is paying attention, and they can actually direct snap it to Isaiah Pacheco, and he can run and get the yards off of it. But they tried to get him to jump off sides or whatever by making them think that Patrick Mahomes is just walking to the sideline to go talk to Andy Reid about the offensive drive that didn't work out, and he lined up at wide receiver at the very very last second, and then they did not snap the ball. So it was pretty funny. The dead fish trick play is when the center is just like, there's something wrong with the ball. There's something wrong with the ball, and he takes the ball, turns around, and hands it to the quarterback, which is a snap in football. And then the quarterback walks to the sideline, holds the ball up in the air, and he's like, "Hey, there's something wrong with the ball. There's something," and then takes off and runs because the defense isn't paying attention. So, but yeah, so the potential game-winning drive, technically, would have been went like this. This is how it starts. First play, out of the huddle, illegal formation, so then it becomes 1st and 15. Out of the huddle, right out the box, we're a 5-yard penalty. Second play is an incomplete pass, so it's 2nd and 15. Back-to-back completions for a first down. They get down the field. 2 plays later, they're in the Chiefs' half of the field. They get to that. They're starting to get close to that area where the Chiefs' defense magically becomes unstoppable, right? The next play is the longest play of the day for the Vikings. They get a 27-yard reception from KJ Osborne, and then they're inside the Chiefs' red zone after this play. Alexander Mattison drops a screenplay, drops a pass off of a screenplay where all 6 of the Chiefs blitzers ran for Kirk Cousins. Then nobody stayed to try and cover the screen on the backside of the play, and Kirk Cousins does a fantastic job of getting that ball right to Alexander Mattison just for him to drop it into the dirt. It would have been offensive lineman versus defensive backs, and then Alexander Mattison walking into the end zone for a potential game-winning play, because if the Vikings had a chance to go for 28 to get 28 points on the board, right? Next play, incomplete shot to the end zone, 4:54 and ticking on the clock because the Vikings used all of their timeouts to get the defensive stop that they needed when there was like 9 minutes and 5 seconds left on the clock. The next play on the 4th down is a delay of game, which made it 4th and 12. Kirk gets murdered while getting a throw off to solo coverage between Lavarius Sneed and Jordan Addison. The initial call is pass interference, and some of you dumb motherfuckers on the internet, 1, didn't listen to the broadcast and it was very clear. 2, had money on the Vikings, were upset that you lost it because of this play. So we're going to go through it step by step. It's just a streak route from Jordan Addison into the end zone. Kirk Cousins throws the ball while he's under pressure. A DB jumps up, hits Kirk Cousins' elbow as he's throwing, and it makes the ball change trajectory, and there's a series of things that happen. The ball lands, so they're running down the right-hand sideline they're running down the right-hand sideline inside the end zone. Sneed has inside position. Addison actually gets walked out of bounds on this route because he's trying to hand fight with Sneed for space down the sideline, and then as soon as the ball gets there, he's trying to do the whole thing like, "Oh, I wasn't even touching him. Why is he still touching me?" to get PI, and that's not how it works. They both were grabbing each other, so it's mutual hand possession fighting. The ball lands 5 yards to the inside of Sneed, right? Making it uncatchable, and there's still people talking about pass interference. There are people who are talking about, like, there's illegal hands to the face, which happens on every single play. So trying to act like you care about it now is interesting. They're like, there was illegal hands to the face on an offensive lineman. Who cares? They were also there's people on the internet trying to say it was roughing the passer, even though very clearly Kirk Cousins is releasing the ball while getting hit by the defensive back, and that's why the trajectory of the ball changes, not because he got hit after the fact. They were talking about it was hands to the face. Didn't see the hands to the magical hands to the face that everybody's always trying to say happens. He got hit in the elbow, and you can see the hand of the DB hit him in the elbow, bro. They're like, he's launching himself at the quarterback. Kirk Cousins is fading away, jumping backwards, and the DB jumps straight up at him to try and block the ball. He is not out of control. He doesn't land on top of him. Kirk Cousins falls backwards because he's trying to get away from pressure. That was a win on defense for the Kansas City Chiefs, and that ends the game essentially. And there's people who are like, "Oh, it's rigged, NFL rigged, NFL rigged," and I'm like, "Yep, that's what it was." It's always rigged when the defense wins, right? But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of people who had money on Vikings +3 in this game and lost out on it. So that being said, let's talk about the Eagles. Let's talk about the Eagles. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. So yeah, bro. This is the heartbreaker category for the Rams because it felt like they were kind of in this game vast majority of it, and it didn't work out for them. The Rams on their first drive, Cooper Kupp's back, by the way. Cooper Kupp's back from the dead, a.k.a. IR, and he back in full force, baby. They ran like 27 slants on the first drive with Cooper Kupp and then ended up in the end zone. They scored on their – this is the messed up part. So they scored on the first two possessions of this game, and then did not score for the rest of the game. That's right. The Eagles somehow, despite the fact their defense was able to go out there and pitch a goddamn shutout, we saw one of the most impressive, actually the most impressive performance from the Rams defense we've seen to date, and they lost this game. The final score is 23-14. Going into the fourth quarter, it was 17-14, right? The Rams get any points on the board and this game is tied up. They get a touchdown, this game is in their hands. Their DBs, their defense came up with a really good plan, and their whole plan was cut everybody else off as much as possible. A.J. Brown killed him. And that's totally cool because Quez Watkins was non-existent. Devontae Smith, non-existent. Dallas Goedert had a really good day because he was going up against defensive backs most of the time, but there was a lot of man coverage across the board for the Rams up front, so it was a little tough. There was a lot of, I got it in here, the Darion Kendricks play, which is whack as fuck. So 23-14, one of these touchdowns, A.J. Brown runs into the end zone. Darion Kendrick is running with them. They both have their hands on each other. A.J. Brown slips while he's trying to two-hand push Darion Kendricks away from him, and then Kendricks is just like standing there. He doesn't have his hands on A.J. Brown, and they call pass interference on him, and then the broadcast team does the WWE broadcasters fix. If you don't know this, the WWE broadcasters are like a huge part of why people believe what's going on in the ring is actually happening, because they're kind of telling you the story as it's unfolding and all that kind of stuff like that. The broadcasters in this game are like, well, they're pretty upset. The broadcasters in this game were like, well, obviously that's pass interference, and it wasn't. It was A.J. Brown trying to push it was offensive pass interference, if anything. He full-on two-arm pushed the DB away from him, and while he was trying to get away with cheating, he fell down. And then they spammed their way into a touchdown on this one because the defense for the Rams had that possession won until that pass interference magically popped up. And as you can tell, you take that. I'm not saying that. I'm not even trying to sit here and argue that they don't score a touchdown like 2 or 3 plays later, right? Because they're the Eagles and they looked really good on offense despite what the scoreboard said. They were able to move the ball up and down the field, what felt like at will on multiple occasions. But you take one of those touchdowns off the board, and now we're talking what? We're talking 17-14 again, right? Even an even closer game. Don't let this deceive you. The biggest issue was the Rams offense, and the reason that was a big issue for them. Oh, by the way, most impressive part of the offense for the Eagles, they shut down Aaron Donald. They were double teaming him. Jordan Mailata has the ability to stop the greatest defensive tackle in the history of the NFL, which I think makes him one of the greatest left tackles to ever exist. Kind of wild. There's multiple times where Aaron Donald's running NASCAR, which is where defensive tackle plays the end, and he just locks him up. Like, there's no question about it. It's wild to watch happen. And then they also ran him. They had a couple double teams from the guards and all that kind of stuff like that. They had a backup guard in this game and still killed it up front. DeAndre Swift, another great game from DeAndre Swift. Kiss all those carries goodbye, Kenneth Gainwell, and I don't even know who Boston Scott is anymore. It's been so long. Is he even on the team? He's on the team, but you know what I mean. Anyway, the start of the third quarter has the Rams in a 3rd and 22, where a fake face mask call. Oh, this was the makeup call that I wrote down. It was like A.J. Brown slips. They called the PI. The Eagles score the touchdown, and then the Rams get the first possession coming out of halftime. And on 3rd and 22, the Rams magically get a face mask call that didn't happen, that they could like clearly see didn't happen, but it kind of looked like it did. And so they were able to throw a flag on it. They get a first down. It doesn't turn into points like it did for the Eagles. It does get them out of a situation where they're punting from inside their own end zone. The Eagles start getting into what we call swarm mode, where it feels like they're everywhere all at once, all the time. The Ravens have done it a couple times this season. The 49ers tend to like come out of the box in swarm mode, where it's like, damn, dude, they ran a halfback screen, and the third person that rallied to the tackle is the defensive tackle that started on the opposite side of the guard in that play, right? Their guys are everywhere. They throw the ball. There's two linebackers like 20 yards down the field somehow because they knew where the ball was going, right? That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about when it comes to swarm mode, and that's why they had a situation where they nearly got an interception and they forced a fumble, and combined with a shit ton of pressure, the second half, they had the Rams cooking. They had the Rams cooked, bro. They had them cooked. They had a couple of successful plays here and there, but the score was... It was tough to look up at the scoreboard to see how close you were, but then to look at what was happening on the field and not feel like you had like a legit chance to do anything, right? Puka Nacua has back-to-back games with a touchdown after not having a touchdown at all in his first like couple of games. He beat James Bradbury in solo coverage in man-to-man coverage, by the way. So the zone killer gets a touchdown in man coverage. The Rams secondary got murked by A.J. Brown. Dallas Goedert had a big game. Big people versus small people. The Rams secondary had the toughest performance up front, despite having one of their best performances like as a unit overall. The Rams secondary looked like we kind of thought the Rams secondary was going to look, but they were going up against elite level guys, right? So that's a good sign to a certain degree. But yeah, that was tough. The Eagles only had 10 points because they got a defensive touchdown in this one. The Rams keyed in on the Eagles blitz pretty late in this game, and that was the biggest thing that was like wrenching at my heart. The Rams knew when the Eagles were blitzing, they just couldn't take advantage of it. Like I said, the fourth quarter started 17-14, and the Rams defense in the grand scheme had an overall really good day. Their offense just couldn't do anything. They got shut out in the second half. So, yeah. Weird shit. This game had a lot of like near face mask and near neck collar tackles. Like a bunch of them. It was kind of weird. No logical reason. Just kept happening. Cool shit that happened. Akilo Witherspoon, one of the DBs, had a beautiful interception for the Rams. Nicholas Morrow, the defensive lineman that we talked about last week, who was like on the practice, he hadn't had a sack in 2 years and 8 months or something like that. He almost had an interception in this game. Hassan Reddick ends this game for the Eagles with back-to-back sacks on Matthew Stafford. That's pretty clutch. That's pretty clutch, ladies and gentlemen. That's some good shit right there. That's some good stuff for everybody. So let's go to the oh my category. Now that I'm finally done rambling about the heartbreakers and why they hurt so much. Sorry, this is what we're here for. Ruin that for everybody. Hopefully you weren't like waiting with bated anticipation for that. Anyway, the Bears played the Commanders, and the Bears are back. The Bears got a little bit of life. They get rid of Chase Claypool, and then all of a sudden their offense starts working. In particular, the DJ Moore part of the offense starts cooking a little bit. So they finally, maybe started using one of the better wide receivers in the NFL correctly, and they were able to get up and down the field. Emmanuel Forbes gets benched in this game. If you're not familiar, Emmanuel Forbes Jr. is a rookie corner who has been tagged as the number one cornerback for the Commanders up front, and he has been on a fucking roller coaster. He played against AJ Brown last week in that relatively close game that they kind of pulled away late in it, and AJ Brown was in his shit. AJ Brown was in his grill, and that usually means that you're actually doing something right when AJ Brown is like in your face talking shit, because it means you're like the Darion Kendricks had AJ Brown talking shit to him or whatever, and it usually means that you're doing something right, that he feels like he needs to say something to you. You know what I mean? Like if he's just cooking you, he doesn't really have anything else. He doesn't need to say anything to somebody he's beating the shit out of, right? But yeah, the Chicago Bears have, I think this is the most points they scored in 2 years. Most points they scored in 2 years. Dallas Cowboys placed the 49ers. The reason these are in the oh my category is because one, I thought the Bears were dead. thought they killed him. But I guess it is Fat Bear Month, right? If you're not familiar, look that up. Dallas Cowboys take on the 49ers. The 49ers were there. The Cowboys, I guess, showed up. They spent a lot of money on the package that happened before this game started, where Jerry Rice and Emmitt Smith kind of went back and forth reading these like trash talking lines and all this kind of stuff like that, just for the 49ers to go out there and kick the living shit out of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not going to talk about this game very much because I think it's if you've lost to the Cowboys, it says a lot about your team, New York Giants. Anyway, they struggle with the pass blocking up front. The usage rate for CeeDee Lamb is off a fucking cliff. Like, he literally was the number one usage rate player in the NFL towards the end of the season last year, and now they just like don't throw the ball to him anymore. So maybe that's a problem. Maybe throwing it to your best wide receiver would help. The Saints beat the Patriots 34-0. Why is that a problem? Well, that would be the most point. I think the Saints scored more points in this game than they had their last two games combined together. I forgot. This is the worst loss in Bill Belichick's career ever. Like, as an NFL coach. Interesting. I know. Weird, bro. So weird. Turns out bad quarterback play has ramifications. Anyway, Mac Jones, when he got drafted, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, Mac Jones, when he got drafted, the conversation was about how he was a fill-in kind of guy, right? He was drafted highly because he was semi-competent enough to play starting quarterback in the NFL. And right now, to me, Bryce Young is playing better than Mac Jones, right? Zach Wilson had a better game this past weekend against a high-quality defense than Mac Jones did against the Saints. Now, I'd love to sit here and believe that this is the domination of the Saints, which to a certain degree it is. To a certain degree, the Saints are one of the better defenses in the NFL. Their offense finally decided to show up, which is great for the Saints because they're going to need that. They want to win the division, they're going to need that. But facts are, man, this one right here, this one is very much about the Patriots. It feels like they've been working patchwork stuff for the past couple of weeks, and the dam finally broke because the huge injuries that they've been picking up on the defensive side of the ball. And now they're headed towards being the clowns of the AFC Beast. So, yeah, man, this is, like I said, worst loss in Bill Belichick's history. That's a tough one. I'm not even going to talk about shit that happened in this game because I don't want to get sad. So, yeah, moving on. Let's talk about the games that actually were fucking sick this week. So, I put the Eagles and the Rams on here because this game was actually super fun all the way through to the end, and because duplication is a thing. This is what we're here for category. The London game, which is actually really sad, the first game of the day, was also one of the better games of the day. The Jacksonville Jaguars get a huge win versus the Buffalo Bills, and we're back to where we were 2 weeks ago in terms of questioning the consistency of the Buffalo Bills. Fun for everyone. I'm sure all the Buffalo fans, they're making every excuse under the sun about the whole, like, oh, they had to travel to London, they had to do this. The Jacksonville Jaguars, basically, their second home is in London, all this kind of jazz like that. I'll point this out. First half of that game, Buffalo Bills defense was kind of doing their thing, you know what I mean? Offense couldn't get anything together, like we mentioned before. 2 plays in a row sure would be nice. Then they had that one drive that sparked it all, where they had like 2 plays in a row that were flagged for, I want to say, like a combined 20 yards. And then all of a sudden their offense is starting to work a little bit more. Josh Allen sacked Josh Allen, and if you ask Josh Allen, I'm sure he would tell you he's not really ready to start playing until he gets sacked by Josh Allen, right? That's when the real game starts. Also, really weird, this strange advantage that the Jaguars have over the Bills. Because remember, the Bills were undefeated until they played against the Jacksonville Jaguars last year, and them beating the Bills kind of sparked them towards their path of where they are right now. Like they're where they're, you know, the team that's projected to win the AFC South, the team that's projected to look really good, the team that finished the season last year with an amazing comeback win versus the Chargers and then lost in the next round. But they just keep meeting, right? The Jacksonville Jaguars got bad juju with teams, and they got really good juju with other ones, right? Like this weekend, this is the guaranteed loss weekend for the Jaguars. If you guys don't know, they're going to the Colts or something. They're going to the Colts, and they never beat the Colts. Like I think it's like 10 in a row they have lost to the Colts in Indianapolis. Very similar to what the Texans experience when they go and play the Colts in Indianapolis. This is like their guaranteed loss week. Good thing they got this big win. I think, obviously all the wins count the same. And we're almost done listening to me sniffle and all this kind of stuff. All the wins count the same no matter what country you're in when they happen. This is a huge one for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Buffalo Bills, man. The offense being asleep half this game really came back to bite them in the ass later on. I will point this out. A lot of people still underrating the Jaguars defense. They have been on point vast majority of this season. The Jaguars defense has been one of the few reasons that the Jacksonville Jaguars offense has been able to come back and win some of these closer games. Like when they played against the Colts almost came back on them. And if it wasn't for the caliber of defense that the Jaguars had, that would have been an L for the Jaguars up front. Once again, a team that their defense is just buying them time to figure it out. Travis Etienne, still sick and dope at playing football. Love watching that dude run the ball. Big miss coming out of this one. Another week passes. Another Buffalo Bills massive superstar player is hurt. The definitive number 2 linebacker in the NFL in terms of overall presence. Matt Milano is the number 1 coverage linebacker in the NFL by a lot of people's metrics, and he broke his leg in this game. Tough into his season. It's early on, and it's another massive injury for the Bills up front in terms of the defense. They've already got the situation with Micah Hyde losing Tre'Davious White again early on in the season. Now losing Matt Milano. By the way, Bernard, who's the guy who's supposed to step up and play linebacker number 48, looked pretty good after Matt Milano went out, but when you got like the definitive number 1 guy, like the number 2 guy in terms of playing linebacker at his position and number 1 in terms of running coverage, you don't just stumble across another guy that talented. You know what I mean? More emphasis on the pressure from the Buffalo Bills, which, by the way, the pressure without Von Miller played in this game, but Ed Oliver, H-Town hold it down. H-Town hold it down, kind of getting it together a little bit there. Yeah. I like seeing that. I think he's got back-to-back weeks with the sack. Ladies and gentlemen, I got nothing else for you. Oh, yes, I do. Breakdown for Thursday Night Football. Don't forget, you can watch Thursday Night Football on Twitch for free. If you don't have Twitch, the app or whatever, go to your phone, download it, or go on to twitch.tv.com, and you'll be able to watch it live there. I don't know if you necessarily have to have an account, but you can go to, I think it's Amazon Prime or Thursday. Hold on, I should be able to look it up right now. I think it's Amazon Prime that you go to on Twitch, and you download it. I can look it up because I'm pretty sure the game already started because it is 7:05, and you know how they like to, they lie about when the game actually starts to get you to watch the pregame show, which is understandable. They put a lot of money into that pregame show. Prime Video is the account that you want to follow. They're loading up the players into the stadium. So the Chiefs are there. Do a little quick breakdown of what I think is going to happen here. So I've been very concerned about how hyped I was in terms of the defense for. I've been pretty hyped about the offensive presence of the wide receivers for the offensive presence for the Broncos. Sorry, I'm trying to do multiple things at one time. So like, been hyped about how I thought Patrick. There's nothing they can do about Tim Patrick getting hurt, right? But we were all supposed to be led to believe that like Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton were going to turn up, and that just hasn't happened, right? That has not happened, and I doubt it's going to happen against a Chiefs defense that is, once again, ladies and gentlemen, they're coming back full strength. They're going to have Nick Bolton. Don't know how the run game is going to work out for them when it's all said and done, but facts are, man, their offensive presence has just been like non-existent in the second and the third quarter. So you want to give. So what their argument is, they want to give like essentially a head start to the Kansas City Chiefs and argue that that's how they're going to win the game. It's just not going to happen, man. Not going to happen. One of the few times where you see a divisional matchup be so lopsided is the Chiefs versus the Broncos, right? And this is a prime example, and that's home and away. At least when the Colts go to Jacksonville, they tend to suck ass. Like, they suck when they go to Jacksonville, but when they play them at home, they beat them every single time. It's almost like a 50-50 situation. With the Broncos versus the Chiefs, it's just an L for the Broncos either way. And I think we're about to rack up another one, man. This could be the straw that broke the camel's back. Week 6 about to get started here for the NFL season. And luckily for you, I just broke down everything in Week 5 so you can move on with your life and get ready for Week 6. Hit me up on Twitter, FB_playbook. If you're watching right now on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe and the like button. I appreciate every single one that I can possibly get because, like I said before, I'm on the slow path to a $100 million podcasting contract where, it's called the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. The business model here is to get money from a corporation to keep doing the show, and then as soon as the money hits my account, stop doing the show, and also pay for my mom to be able to go wherever she wants to go, buy her new house, all that good stuff. Anyway, hit me up on Twitter, FB_playbook. Follow, like, subscribe, Broke Boy Sports, all that stuff like that. You can follow on Twitter. I tweet from there when the show goes live. That's literally the only tweets that come out of the Broke Boy Sports account when the show goes live. So, with that being said, go home. Sorry. Wash your hands. Wash your ass. Drink water. And most importantly, go home, Roger.